Hello and welcome to the brand new show from Outlaw Mudcast, the Outlaw Mudcast Competitor Review Show. On this show, I and a guest will look at two competitors in the Super Show and just talk about them, our thoughts, so on and so forth. Today on the show, we are going to be reviewing Brian Wait For It Schmidt and K7 Sniper. Joining me to talk about these two competitors is the current LFF Tri-State Champion and the consigliere of the Crime Wave, Brian Wait For It Schmidt. Brian, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mr. Kirk. You have impeccable taste on co-hosts coming forward with this show. You pick probably one of the best you're going to have out of all these shows, so you're welcome.
I don't know. I'm not used to having people compliment the co-host. So
No, but it's not to the Crime Wave. Consigliere to the SRG Boss, Mr. Brian Wait For It Schmidt.
Oh, okay. I thought it was consigliere to the whole Crime Wave.
No, sir.
That's to the boss.
I don't know where you get your news, but hashtag fake news, sir.
All right. Let's begin talking about your own competitor, Brian Wait For It Schmidt. Let me go through the skills, the gimmick, and then we'll talk about the finishes and just other things in general. So Brian Wait For It Schmidt, Power 7, Technique 8, Agility 9, Strike 6, Submission 10, Grapple 5. Your opponent cannot play a follow-up or finish without a lead in play. So, let me start. Normally I'd go right into the competitor, but since I have the man behind the competitor here, let's go a little bit in the background. Where did you come up with the idea for doing this as your competitor?
So, a little bit breaking the fourth wall here. I'm a huge mark for How I Met Your Mother, especially Barney Stinson, if it's not pretty apparent on the gimmick, the competitor himself. Before I designed Wait For It, I was playing a lot of D3, and I played a lot of Various too, because I kind of like board control. I kind of like being able to dictate what's going to happen. I was trying to think in my head what would make it work. And I actually went to two people to talk about the gimmick. I went to Google Docs Dan Page, and I went to Kirk Polka about this. And then I threw ideas again against Bombada and John Polverino. When it came time for me to actually get playtest and all that stuff, I sent all the info to Steve of what I wanted my finishes to be, what I wanted my gimmick to be. Which, by the way, the only reason why Wait For It exists because of the kindness of one man. So he's been thanked several times already. So I'm not going to really mention his name again. But the reason why Wait For It's there is because he put me in there for people ribbing on me because I didn't have a competitor. So, but the competitor itself, I just feel like Wait For It's the kind of person that knows what's coming. He's going to make sure that you constantly have to wait till the end of everything. Be patient with everything. Make sure you get everything in line for your turn. So, that's the whole story behind him. It's literally just an ode to Barney Stinson.
All right, so now we've got a little background. Let's talk about the. Let me start with the gimmicks. I think the gimmick's the most.
Yeah.
The thing that stands out the most when you first look at it. Your opponent cannot play a follow-up or finish without a lead in play. Now, the thing that comes to mind for most people is if I play a stop that is based on either your skill being higher than your opponent's skill, having one card of the same type in play, or any stop that's a follow-up. Normally, I can play those stops without any other cards in play. Your card's going to prevent that.
Yes. So.
No,
go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, what are you going to say? No, answer the question.
Oh, okay. What made you decide that was the mechanic you wanted to go with?
So, like I said, I talked to Dan about my gimmick first before I threw at Kirk Polka and all them.
Yeah.
And I basically messaged Dan. I was like, Dan, I've been playing D3. I played D3 at Grand Gathering, Virtual Grand Gathering this year. In both Underworld and World Heavyweight, and I went 0-5 in both. So I'm like, okay, Dan, I like D3. I like his gimmick. I want to run Wait For It as that. So immediately he said to me, your opponent cannot play a follow-up without a lead in play. So initially his gimmick was follow-up only.
Mm-hmm.
I play tested it at follow-up. It was doing well. But then when me and Steve were talking about the character development, the playtesting, he threw in the finish. And the finish part of the gimmick. So I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. I'm intrigued by it. It's more like, wait for it. You can't do that. The main reason I wanted the gimmick, you can blame two people in the community, and I know this one will love it. Eddie Fury is one of the first people I played in like an online in-person match, and we played like a couple of games. Every single game he schoolboyed me. So I wanted something that I can't be schoolboyed.
Right.
So
and for those who, go ahead.
Yeah.
And for those of you who aren't familiar with Schoolboy, Schoolboy is a lead grapple at number 26. It's a lead, but the text says it's also a finish. If your finish roll is 7 or, sorry, if it's 8 or greater, your finish roll is -3. And I believe you draw 2 cards off of it as well.
Yeah, you draw 2 cards off it.
Yeah. So when this card's in play, if your opponent, when you're playing as Brian Waitford Schmidt, if your opponent has no cards in play, they cannot play a card like Schoolboy because they can't play a finish unless they already have a lead in play. It will not count itself. You can't play a dual lead finish card.
Yeah, and you cannot play a lead follow-up card as well, too, without a lead in play.
Right.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, so that was the whole point of the gimmick, because I've been schoolboyed so many times, and there's plenty of times where everyone in the community has been follow-up finished into a loss. And a lot of my losses at Grand Gathering, a lot of my losses in many, many events was follow-up finish to a 10. So, kind of selfish that I wanted that. Kind of selfish, it would probably make it like a good starter character for people so they can actually learn the rules, lead, follow-up, finish. That was the intent with my competitor, but I've heard people saying this gimmick is low-key, like, top tier.
I can see people. Who was the other person that you were going to mention besides Eddie Fury that made
you? He won Player of the Year last year. Chris Pate.
Okay.
But I talked to Chris a lot, and Chris is my competitor is on his list of competitors to pick up. But I've talked to him a lot about it. Like, I hate the fact that people can follow up into a finish. I know it's a rule in the game, but I don't. It just irks me, and I don't like. It's like too quick to actually get a feel of the game. So I just really enjoy. The gimmick works for me. It makes sense for the whole backstory for Wait For It, and I'm very happy with what the gimmick is. Very happy.
All right. Now, would you play a lot of cards, or discard cards that your opponent has in play in your deck with this type of competitor?
So, when I was doing the playtesting, I'm going to reference playtesting a couple times. When I was doing the playtesting, I ran the Fireman's Carry line at 7 through 9.
Mm-hmm.
I ran Dark Dealings. I ran everything that could blow up cards in the play area, so my gimmick would actually be working. With like playing my competitor over and over and over for the last since it came out, which was that was November.
All right.
The deck has kind of evolved into a hybrid almost, where my Finished Strike, which we'll go over, like we'll talk about, but my Finished Strike can be played as a follow-up.
Mm-hmm.
And if I play Rolling Forearm into that, unless you have a double armbar or an armbar, you can't stop the finish.
That's right. Because of your gimmick, they have to have at least one lead in play to play a card like
Leg
Lock, for example.
I just I just really I wanted something that I felt like was my play style too with play decks, and I play very aggro with my competitors. So Wait For It can kind of go controlling. He can play the board, or he can go complete aggro and just run over your opponent turn one if you get the right cards.
All right.
There's not like I can tell you right now in my deck that I run for like locals and stuff. I run about 4 removal cards from the field. One of them being Lockdown Hold.
That's the card at number 24. That when you roll your submission, you can add it from your discard pile to your deck.
Yep.
Yep. And when you play it, it's a follow up. When you play it, it removes a card from your opponent's play area. They'd have to move a card from their play area to the discard pile. A card in play, that is. Yep. All right.
So I really do enjoy those cards. I really do. I like the first deck I played into this game was Alien, but then the Italian Bombata turned me on to Various, and I enjoyed Various so much. I love the fact that you stop something, you have to blow something up and play, that type of thing. So that was kind of the idea for they're bringing the gimmick into fruition. So a lot of like removal was there that I wanted. So that's literally what I wanted to do. Am I repeating myself? I think I am.
It's okay. All right, since you brought up Alien, I'm going to talk about, and this is going to seem like a weird sequitur, but bear with me. So before I go and talk about finishes, I always like to talk about stops.
Yeah.
You got a submission of 10.
Yep.
Do you run bow and arrow? Sorry, no, it's right. Bow and arrow at 15.
Yes. So right now the Wait For It deck has 2 skill cards. It's Lockdown Hold and Alien Invasion.
That was going to be my second question. That's why we talked about Alien.
Yeah, I run bow and arrow because I don't have another. If I wasn't rolling Lockdown Hold, I would roll Armenian Chokehold because the card draw is always good. I actually Wait For It initially was supposed to be a Grapple 9, but then I was like, what is my favorite card in the game that I love playing? That I always look for sub 10 Agility 9 or Agility 10 sub 9, and it's Alien Invasion. So I made sure that my gimmick, that my stats reflected the ability for me to play Alien Invasion.
And just to go over that, there's 2 cards we're talking about. At number 15, bow and arrow will stop your opponent's strike if your submission is greater than their submission.
Yep.
At number 13, Alien Invasion is a skill card. You have to have an 8 or greater in submission to play it, and have the text be not blank. If your agility is greater than your opponent's agility, it'll stop any grapple, and allows you to put a card from your discard pile on top of your deck. You've got a submission of 10 and agility of 9, so that makes sense. And you're choosing to use a skill card rather than use a non-skill card like Kick into the Corner.
Yep.
At number 13. And then you've got a 7 and 5, so 14. What would you play at 14? What do you like at 14?
14, it's either Take Over the Table or Sidewalk Slam. Sidewalk Slam buries discards a card from play. Take Over the Table allows you to shuffle 3 cards from your discard pile into your deck.
And both good cards with this deck.
Very good cards.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and start talking about the finishes.
Let's talk about them. I love these things.
Yeah. Finish strike, number 28. It's over.
It's over.
I apologize to the listeners.
Turn down the speakers, guys. It's going to get loud.
+2 to power, +2 to strike. If your opponent has 1 or fewer follow-ups in play, this card is also a follow-up. Like you mentioned before, a card like Rolling Forearm, I believe that's a number 7 lead strike.
Yep.
It allows you to play a second card or 1 additional card during this turn. Or if you have less cards in your hand than your opponent, you can draw 2. So you can play Rolling Forearm and then it's over. Because if your opponent only has
The story behind this was my first online event. I won with Snake Pit, and I won with a snake bite. And when I talked to Steve, and I submitted the initial finishers, it's all had snake bites bonuses initially.
Mm-hmm.
So when I talked to Steve was like, "So we gotta change the stats on the bonuses for your finish strike." I'm like, "That's fine. Is it kind of like a snake bite?" He's like, "Yes, it is." I'm like, "Cool. I'm cool with that. I'm perfectly fine with that. Like +2 to my 7, +2 to my 6. I mean, like that's not like it's good, especially when you get higher ground meters.
Mm-hmm.
But still, getting +2 to my 7, +2 to my 6, I'm rolling like I have 2 9s and 2 8. I have 2 9s and 2 8s. Like that's probably one of the better ways for it to happen. One of the better ways for this card to be used. So, and I picked a lot of the competitors I'm doing the things to because of stories I've had with them. If you don't know, Rhaegar the Dragon God is on the finish strike. It's a code breaker. If you've seen me, when I first came to the LFF, I had the list. And I just basically said, I'm a Jericho mark. Everyone knows I'm a Jericho mark, so I would do this as my strike finish. Like every one of my finishes has another competitor that is one of my favorite pro wrestlers as their finish.
Okay. That's I did not know you were a big fan of Chris Jericho. Makes sense.
No one knows that.
I mean, I should have figured out with the list, but it's been so long since I've heard about the list. It's just faded into obscurity.
Thank God it did. So 2015.
Maybe the new SRG historian can document that so it's not lost to time. Whoever that ends up being.
Yeah, the list is somewhere in a dumpster in Boston, Massachusetts.
All right. So. Just to recap the skill with these bonuses +2 to power, +2 to strike, with no crowd meter, it gives you a 10, 2 9s, 2 8s, and a 5.
Yep.
Which is really strong.
Yes.
50% chance to roll 9 or better, 5 out of 6 to roll 8 or better. That's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go on to the finish grapple. Number 29, Royal Ramble Roll. +1 to agility, +2 to grapple. Shuffle 1 card from your discard pile into your deck and draw 1 card.
So, Royal Ramble Roll, at the time when I was designing Wait for It, I was part of a podcast called Royal Ramble Radio, which has since defunct for other reasons. But I wanted something because Royal Ramble was part of my wrestling. Initially, what got me into SRG. We were getting people from the company come on and talk about the product and all that stuff. So Royal Ramble Roll just seemed fitting that I would actually have this in the game. So it's not really, can't really tell, but it is a Canadian destroyer, which I didn't know.
I can see that.
Yeah, there was no other Canadian destroyers in the game because you really can't show that on a card, kind of.
It's a little hard to tell. You might maybe with 3 panels it'd be a little easier, but I mean, still 2 panels, not bad at delivering it to the Mad One.
Yep. When I asked the Mad One about it, he's like, "Yeah, I'll put me on there." I'm like, "That's fine with me. I'm good with that." So he was actually excited. I sent him a copy of me as well too, because he's on there. So, with the text and stuff, shuffle 1 from discard pile into deck and draw 1. I wanted something. I didn't want like an extremely confusing effect on my finishes because my gimmick itself is confusing to start for people who don't really know the game. So I wanted something where you shuffle 1 card in and then you draw 1. So if this is like you have that roll, you have that fallaway slam, you have that backlash with the ladder, you have stuff like that in your discard pile that you need back. It'll give you a chance to actually get it back in there and actually be able to try and get it on the draw. And the shuffle's always good. Always good.
Yeah. And of course, this is great when you have little or no deck left. When you're decked out, you hit this, get a card that you want from your discard immediately back to your hand.
Yep.
+1 to agility, +2 to grapple, bumps those up to a 10 and 7. So 2 10s. 8, 2 sevens, and a 6.
Yep.
It's not bad.
Not bad at all. I kind of said I don't want really any 5s on my finishes, but I really couldn't go like three snap bonuses on my finish strike. So
yeah,
it's I like it. It's actually won me more games because of the agility 10 than its over has. True story.
I can see that.
Yeah. And then it's just this is basically Adam Cole. He does the Canadian Destroyer, and I kind of want to commission the Super Royal Ramble roll where I do it off the top rope because he does that in NXT. So
okay,
we'll see what happens. I mean, like anything is possible when you work for the boss.
I suppose that's true. Let's move on to the submission finish number 30. Legend. Wait for it. And I hope you're not lactose intolerant because the second part is dairy lock. +1 to technique, +3 to grapple. Your opponent's first breakout roll is -1 for every 2 follow-ups they have in their discard pile. Skill-wise, it's going to bump your grapple up to an 8 and your technique up to a 9. 6, 7, 8, 2 9s, and a 10. 50% chance to roll 9 or better is good. And it's going to make your opponent have difficulty breaking out on the first breakout roll.
Yep.
Because it's going to look at their discard pile. Every 2 follow-ups they have in there, it's -1. So if they had all 10 follow-ups in there, -5 to the first breakout roll.
Yep.
If they had cards in there like your own It's Over that are a finish and a follow-up, it's going to count those too.
Yes.
So theoretically, up to -12 maybe?
I've never gotten it that far. The most I've gotten is a -4 in the first roll.
Yeah. I mean, sorry, -6. I'm sorry, -6. Half of 12.
Yeah.
12 cards. You're playing Mark Jeff Bravo, and the guy playing Mark Jeff Bravo has 2 follow-up finishes in his deck. Theoretically, he could have 12 follow-ups.
Yep.
So -6.
So,
which could really wreck somebody's day.
Yeah, so when I was designing this, I looked at zombie sub finish, and I was like, I want the longest longest finish name in the game, which it is. And this directly pertains to Barney Stinson. So one of his biggest things that he's done, one of his most quotes is, Legend, wait for it. I hope you're not lactose intolerant because the second part is a dairy. Legendary. He says that all the time. So I kind of wanted the like Barney Stinson on one of my finishes. And it's owed to, I don't know if I'm allowed to say Chris Benoit on the show, but it's a cripple or crossface.
Okay. I was thinking it kind of reminded me of a LaBelle lock, but yeah, cripple crossface probably makes more sense.
I get the LaBelle lock, I get the cripple crossface a lot of the time, but I told Steve I'm a huge Benoit fan. Sad what he did, but still, I'm a huge fan of the wrestler himself. And
Benoit is someone I've never seen a lot, so I wouldn't have recognized the crossface.
His matches are really good, very very technical, very submission based. But I wanted this, and I usually talk to Leo about pro wrestling stuff, and I asked him, it's like, I'm putting you in cripple crossface. He's like, go ahead. I'm like, okay. So it was, I sent the art, and when I showed him the artwork of the crippler, of the finish, he's like, oh, that's me. I'm like, yeah, that's you. This is you. You'll be on one of my finishes. So I was very excited. The artist Val, who did what was it?
Tarosa?
Yeah, they did the art for the finishes, and Nuno did my my competitor.
Yes.
So I was excited with the art. Like this finish late game. So if it's crowd meter 2, and I hit this, and we've basically cleared the board like 6 different times, it's a killer.
Yeah, it is.
Again, no. I tried to get no 5s to be present, and this is what I wanted, and it was awesome. It had a different iteration when my grapple was higher, but I'm happier with this other than the previous version. So it's very happy with how my competitor came out. So
I think the last thing to talk about, since we talked about the art, is your competitor card has the Crime Wave logo on it.
yes.
So
Not
if
the
anything,
canary, that's the crime wave. The C with the wave behind it is crime wave.
okay. So if anything comes out specifically pertaining to Crime Wave, this card could factor in with that.
Yes.
Are you aware of anything? Have you suggested anything to the SRG boss in your role as his consigliere that he should do regarding that?
So I haven't really suggested because we're working on Why Wrestling more. I do a lot of production for Dojo, SRG Dojo, and I do the back end for Talking Universe, which is live Wednesday nights, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, twitch.tv/SRG Universe Bang Bang. We haven't really talked about it. I mean, like, I've commissioned other cards that is going to go into another version of Wait For It. I'm kind of eyeing to do, but it's not really like come to fruition yet. It's going to be more of like a real ode to How I Met Your Mother. But I don't know if there's anything coming. Like, Boss is open with us about certain things, but like super, like, I don't know much. People ask me about New Japan spoilers. I'm like, I don't know them. I don't know any of them. Just because I'm the boss's right-hand man, I don't know anything.
So you don't see that. So just to break in, so when you put those up, for example, on Talking Universe last week, you didn't know that till they sent you those files to put up there that day?
Basically, they'll send me the files a half an hour before the show, and then I put them up.
Okay.
So if you introduce to the boot party, that still lives to this day.
Even with him getting a new contract and moving on from the Crime Wave, does that threat still exist?
Yeah, the threat still exists.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move on from threats to a little happier topics. I think that's going to do it. I think that's going to do it for Brian Wait For It Schmidt. Was there anything else you wanted to add before we go on to the next competitor?
If you build me, what I would suggest is play how you want to play. If you want to add cards in to get rid of stuff in the field, go ahead. If you want to add, like, say, reverse head drop, super kick, stuff like that, or like amalgamation, a mix of cards into the deck, and just like have fun with the build with Wait For It, because that's the whole point of this game, and that was the whole point of my competitor, is to have fun. That's it. And to say, Eddie Fury, you can't schoolboy me.
All right. So our next competitor is relatively new as well. K7 Sniper. Power 5, Technique 10, Agility 6, Strike 9, Submission 8, Grapple 7. At the start of the match, choose an opponent and a skill. Your opponent's skill of the chosen type is -1 during turn rolls. I'll start talking about the gimmick. I like the gimmick. Go ahead.
That's a really interesting gimmick. Like, I know I was supposed to prep for the show, and staying face here, I kind of looked at it like 15 minutes before we started recording.
It's okay.
Start a match, choose an opponent, their skill, your opponent's skill. Now, this is only targets one opponent, because that's what snipers do. They only target one target at a time. So, I mean, like, you could effectively kill someone's 10
Yeah,
right at the start of the game.
Right at the start, which, most people that's going to work. Now, if you're someone like numero uno, you won't kill the 10
Yeah.
because that's going to hurt you. But most time you're going to kill the 10. The only time I wouldn't see you kill the 10 is maybe if you're playing something like Vegas Stakes, you kill the 7.
Yeah, so you can't roll 7.
Yeah, Vegas Stakes has a special win condition where if they roll 3 7s in a row, they win. You play this in Vegas Stakes, you take away your opponent's 7, that win condition's gone. They have to beat you normally. And now this is just during turn rolls, so you couldn't do something like if my opponent had an 8 power and they were running press slam. You couldn't make their power a 7 and take away their ability to use press slam. It's only during turn rolls. Once the turn roll ends, all the skills are back at the normal amounts.
Yeah.
Yeah, this could definitely kill a 10, kill a 7.
And there's plenty of cards in the game that minus your opponent's skills. So you can kind of add and add and add stuff onto it. So they can have, you have, there's one at 15, there's one at 19, there's the ones at 19, 20, 21, so you'd be giving up a skill stop, a C1 stop one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of ways you can... I haven't seen him played a lot yet, so I don't think he's been, used yet. I know it's a created card. I don't know who this is.
I also do not know who this is.
I wish I knew who it was so I could say this is a really good gimmick. This is something I would definitely play. This is something it very controlly, and you can basically win turn rolls just based on this deck. You don't need a champion Kickstarter. You don't need something like that. You can just minus what you need and then go from there.
Yeah, with a technique of 10, I'd probably run single leg crab at number 15.
Yep.
With a strike of 9, running lariat. And then you've got a grapple 7 and power 5, so I just pick what I think is best with that. A lot of good options.
A lot of good options in the stop stats. Running lariat, you could hurricane kicks agility, so you can't really run that.
No.
Can't use Armenian chokehold. He can actually use the new number 15 that discards a card in play.
Okay.
I think that's the stat.
Can he use that? Aren't those cards? Are those the skill cards?
Yeah.
Now, don't they run the same as the Beg for Mercy?
So Slingshot Lock, he actually can run. So if your technique skill is greater than your opponent, stop any strike, choose one card they have in play, and discard it.
Okay, so that's not a skill requirement card.
No, it has an A+ submission requirement.
Oh, it's a submission, okay.
Yeah.
That's what I was curious, because Beg for Mercy is Grapple. And I was thinking they were the same, but you're saying they're different? Okay.
They're different, yep.
All right, so that's good. Okay. So, yeah, you could certainly do that. Let's move on to the finishes, and we'll start with the finish strike, number 28. It is a spotlight card. Boom. Headshot. And this actually could tie in with your gimmick, because the text of it is +1 to strike. When this card is in your discard pile and your opponent's turn roll is 7, you may discard 1 card from your hand to shuffle this card into your deck. So with the gimmick, you could say, I'm going to make their 8 a 7, double my chances of being able to shuffle this back into the deck. Yeah. Bonus-wise, it gives you 2 10s and then 8 7 6 5. My own thoughts on finishes are always I like sort of the bonuses to skills. Yeah. I think that's kind of the most important. So this and the other two, there aren't a lot. But would you run this, or would you run something else?
I mean, there's not many strikes that I could really sub this with. I mean, the one thing I'm seeing I could swap out this for is the one that gives you pluses to your lowest.
Raging Roundhouse, maybe? Is that what you're thinking of?
Yeah, Raging Roundhouse.
+1 to test, +1 to strike, +3 to your skill. Add 1 card from your discard to your hand. Must have an 8 or greater in strike to run it.
But that takes away one of your but that takes away one of your skill cards. And a lot of times when I'm building decks, unless I have a finish that I kind of like, that kind of puts it over, I won't run it, but if it's not, I'll run Thunder Driver, I'll run Raging Roundhouse, I'll run Sharpshooter. If it fits in the skill.
Okay.
But I like the +1 to strike, and the card text itself is really good, so plays into the gimmick. And plus, how many times you played in a first-person shooter where you basically say boom headshot, and you cannot like enjoy that saying boom headshot.
I mean that is enjoyable.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to the finished grapple number 29, Sniper's Edge. +2 to agility, +1 to grapple. If your opponent hit a card last turn, your opponent gets 1 less breakout roll this turn.
Oh.
So, yeah, I know. So skill boost wise, it bumps the agility and grapple to 8s. So 5, 3 8s, a 9, and a 10. That's really nice.
That's really good.
And then if your opponent hit a card last turn, they get 1 less breakout roll. So only 2. And this, again, it's just hit a card. That could be hit a card on their own turn, or you won the turn and they stopped you.
Yeah.
Either one.
This is just like, I know they don't really want cards like Circle the Sun in the game, but this is just cool. You've exhausted all of your opponent's stop grapples. You drop Sniper's Edge. Oh, you got 2 breakout rolls. Good luck. I mean, like, this is. I like the text. I like the bonuses. And
lose the breakout roll, or do I let something they're playing go so I get my 3 breakouts? Kind of puts the opponent in a little bit of a bind.
I would not change this for any of the generic submissions, generic grapples out there. Absolutely not.
I'm wondering if this is a New Jersey Philadelphia player,
because EV.
Yeah, because that's EV on the finished grapple.
Yeah.
The finished strike features Amir Gaynor, the old Skull and Bones.
Mm-hmm.
And the third finish, which we'll go ahead and talk about now, the finished submission number 30, Hyperion, features the living weapon Michael Deans.
Yep.
+2 to submission. If stopped, add 1 strike from your discard pile to your hand.
Oh, so that gives him 2
10s, makes his 8 of 10.
With
so 2 10s, 9, 7, and 5. With that ability, to add a strike if it's stopped. That actually could,
That's kind of like trapping you. I like it a lot too.
Yeah. You play this finished submission. If they stop it, you could pick up the finished strike and then maybe throw the finished grapple next turn and get the 2. Yeah, these to me feel very situational.
Yeah.
You're gonna play. This is much more of a finesse deck, finesse type finishes to me, where it's gonna be. I mean, instead of just playing them, I would wish they had a little bit better on the bonuses outside of the grapple. Pretty much, I just give you the strike and the sub just give you 2 10s, and then all the other skills stay the same.
I mean, like with the card text on them, it kind of is. If you added more like a skill bonus, they may become a little bit too overpowered.
Well, I don't think, like, talking about boom headshots. It's got to be in the discard. Your opponent has to roll a 7, and you have to discard to shuffle it back. So there's a lot you have to do to get that for that text to kick off.
Yeah,
and it only gives you +1 to strike.
Which is still 2 10s. If it's kilometer 1 or greater, you're basically you're winning.
Well, if you hit them, I mean, you got a 1 in 3 chance to hit that, but if you hit it, you're going to win most of the time.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the thing. Maybe the negative, the minus with this. Maybe you play a bunch of pluses to your play a bunch of turn roll boost cards, take away their 10, and then the idea is you just hit these turn roll boost cards, win turn rolls because they've got that -1.
Yep.
And then get off. So maybe that's sort of the strategy with this deck. if you were to run K7 Sniper.
I like the video game person in me is kind of feeling that this is drawing some inspiration from an FPS, Borderlands. I don't know if you played it, Mike.
I'm familiar with Borderlands, yes.
Okay, so Hyperion is one of the gun producers.
Yeah, that is true, yes.
K7, I believe K7 Sniper was a sniper. Was a sniper the gun you could get in one of the Borderlands games? I don't remember. But Sniper's Edge, all that stuff. I would love to ask the guy who designed this if it had anything to do with Borderlands.
I would say, seeing Hyperion, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
They were one of the companies in that game.
Like, people inspiring, they're getting like inspirations from other sources other than pro wrestling for their gimmick. I love it. I honestly enjoy the fact that there's little call-outs to other things in like geekdom out there. So this is definitely, if you're looking for something to have fun with and kind of screw with your opponent's skills, K7 Sniper is what you need.
Yep, K7 Sniper, kind of an anti, almost the opposite of an AJ or a B1.
Yeah,
yeah.
Like this is something you could use to counter both of them, but still, he's still going to have a 2 9s and a 10 on certain turn rolls.
Yep.
This is actually one of my orders for that I ordered. So I know I'll be building this, taking apart a couple of decks, because every SRG player has like 40 plus decks built.
Quite, yes, a lot of them do. I don't think I have that many, but
actually, Bombada has 43 built at one time.
Yeah, Bombada built a lot of decks.
Yeah.
And so, if you're looking to build new decks, you might think about checking out K7 Sniper or Brian Schmidt. But I think that's all I have to say. Was there anything you wanted to add on these two competitors?
Not really. Wait for its gimmick, just for an FYI, and this has been the thing is, it doesn't, you choose an opponent in tag. It says your opponent, so you can't really, it's tunneled, because D3 didn't tunnel initially until they FAQ'd him.
So in other words, that only works against the opponent playing on you. So if you're in a tag match, one of your opponents wants to play a follow-up on your partner with no leads and play against the partner, that's perfectly legal.
If I don't target them with my gimmick, yes.
Oh, so you would choose, so you're saying you would choose at the beginning of the game who you would target?
Yeah, but the way I've been explaining, and I've talked to a couple people, is I have to choose an opponent. Because D3 used to say your opponents, not your opponent. So my gimmick says your opponent. So I have to physically choose one for my gimmick to work on.
Okay, I just figured that it just worked against you, which for both of them.
I'm still kind of working out, but I believe the way I said it here is true. But if not, I will post something myself, and I'll say, ha ha ha, I'm the best tag team player out there.
I don't know if you can beat Jokerfish and Jacques. So.
No, absolutely not. I cannot beat that. No. Actually, playtesting with Wait For It, Bombada threw Jacques at me. And those were really my only big losses when I was playtesting Wait For It. So.
Yep. All right, well, I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in to this first ever episode of the new competitor review show. My guest was Brian Wait For It Schmidt. Like you said before, you can check him out on the Dojo Tuesday nights, Talk of the Universe Wednesday nights, both on the SRG Universe Twitch page, twitch.tv / SRG Universe /
SRG Universe.
/ SRG Universe. Thought it was / All right. And then Why Wrestling? The WhyNetworks.com.
Yep, WhyNetworks.com, and make sure we post the links on Tuesday after 4 o'clock. That's when the episode airs. Please do me a favor, like, subscribe, follow Y Networks. Also do this with this version of Mike's podcast because this is a lot of love he puts into, and he should be appreciated for it. I know you got a lot of listeners already with the Outlaw Mudcast, but let's boost this up just a little bit more. Let's get this past the Outlaw Mudcast.
Not a high bar, but thank you.
Good night.
All right, thanks. Good night, everybody. Or good
Bye, man. Bye, man.